This is the Star-Spangled Banner, the flag of the United States of America. And I'm not a big fan of it, so I'm gonna redesign it based off of its history. I guess you can call it a historical redesign. But for us to do a historical redesign, we need to first understand America's history. But for context for the design process later on, I'm gonna explain to you what the current one means. First off, the American flag has 13 stripes, 7 red and 6 white. These represent the 13 original colonies that declared independence from Great Britain in 1776. Then you've got the 50 stars in a blue field, called the canton, one for each state in the Union. The number of states has changed over time as new states joined, but the layout we use today was adopted in 1960 after Hawaii became the 50th state. As for the colors, they symbolize valor and bravery with red, purity and innocence with white, and vigilance, perseverance and justice with the blue. That's about it for the flag. Great, now that you know what we're trying to represent, let's get into the... It all started when the British and French arrived in North America and colonized the land. Then after the 7 Years' War, because they had border disputes, Britain needed money and they expected the American colonies to help pay for it. In 1765, Britain passed the Stamp Act, which didn't make the American colonies happy, and they were furious, but the British didn't care. Instead, this act was followed by the Townshend Act, the Quartering Act, and the Act of Tea, which was the final straw. In response, a group of activists formed the Sons of Liberty in 1765. It was made of regular workers from Boston and led by figures like Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Paul Revere. The Sons of Liberty organized protests and used bold tactics to resist British rule. Their message was clear: no taxation without representation. In 1770, tensions erupted into violence when British soldiers fired into a crowd, killing 5 colonists. Patriots quickly labeled it as the Boston Massacre, and the event became a rallying cry against British oppression. 3 years later, the Sons of Liberty staged one of the most famous protests in American history. They disguised as Mohawk warriors, they boarded British ships, and they dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. Then in 1774, 12 colonies saw the British as a common enemy and called the first Congress meeting in Philadelphia, which basically said, we're gonna send aid to Boston and if necessary enter a war on their side for independence. That war came in the American Revolution. After this war in 1776, they won and got said independence. The rest of American history is pretty obvious, so I'm gonna skim through it. A few years later, they learned from their father to take stuff that isn't theirs and look left and said, manifest destiny. While that was going on, they had a war with themselves about slavery between the Union and the Confederation. Long story short, after some defeats, struggles, and fear that the European powers might join on Lincoln's side for the Union, after a decisive battle in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, they eventually won the war. Then they isolated themselves and traded a bit, and then they got a telegram from the British about the Mexicans, which led them to join World War I on side of the Allies, and then they showed them Europe with their shotguns and won the war for the Allies. 20 years later, in another attempt at isolation, Pearl Harbor happened and they got dragged into round 2 by the Japanese. After some battles in the Pacific, they took a break from it, did D-Day with the British and Canadians, defeated Germany again, and Italy in the process, and then they remembered the Japanese and said, alright, that, and shot 2 nukes at them. This didn't make the Soviets very happy, and Cold War times happened, a few races and proxy wars here and there, and we have the United States we have today. And as for the flag history, they literally just said, alright, blue canton, 13 stripes, and added the star for each time a new state joined the Union. For a more detailed flag history video, there is one made of paper. Go check it out, I put the link in the description. Just like with the Mongolia redesign, check that out, I struggled at the start because America's flag history is useless and wasn't great. I'm sure they changed the flag like 27 times in the past 150 years, but it's literally just adding a star after star after star. It's all the same. Maybe there are some cool patterns here and there, but all in all the same. So I looked at redesigns from other people and I found some good ones and I found some not so good ones. So I need to go deeper into history and found this, which is the flag of the Sons of Liberty, hence why I went in depth with them earlier. But this didn't help me, but I knew I wanted to incorporate this into the flag somehow. Things I also wanted in the redesign is the red, white and blue color combination and the huge amount of stars. And if you're wondering why I'm not adding an eagle, it's because it's going to be a little too detailed and I already have enough small elements, namely the sheer amount of stars. But also, if I simplify the eagle too much or do something else, it might look fascist. Prime example. Also, I'd rather leave the eagle for the coat of arms, you know? Also, I'd rather leave the eagle for the coat of arms in this case. But, I don't know about you, when I think of America, or the Star-Spangled Banner, or anything in that sense, I think of this. Before I reveal to you how this is relevant, please enjoy this time-lapse of me designing the flag that totally isn't here to make the video 8 minutes or longer. Are you ready to see the final flag? Of course you are, here it is. Beautiful, isn't it? Now let me walk you through it. I decided to make the entire top half of the flag the canton with the stars because that is the main job of the flag, to symbolize a union. I'll get back to that in a second, but first I need to clear up the historical element I added, which is at the bottom half of the flag. And that is the flag of the Sons of Liberty, but instead of 9 stripes, there are 13, for the 13 original colonies. Anyway, let's get back on top. Now, let me rant to you about the star formation for a second, because oh boy did I struggle with this. First off, in the center there is a star made of 13 small stars, and this is where the trouble started. If I use 13 stars in the center, then I need to split the rest between the two sides evenly. But that is impossible because there are 37 stars remaining, which is an uneven number. So I put one more on the right side of the flag because it symbolizes the East Coast in this case, and there are more states on the East Coast than there are on the West. I thought that was clever. If you have a better solution, feel free to drop in the comments. What made the star formation also pretty difficult was my math skills. First I added 51 stars because 19 on each side and 13 in the middle. Then I had 48 because I realized I only had 12 in the center, and it's just a whole shebang I can't be bothered to explain. But lo and behold, and a few variations later, I did it. Now I'm still undecisive and I want your opinion about this. On the bottom half with the flag of the Sons of Liberty, I changed it from 9 stripes to 13 for the 13 colonies. But I already represented the 13 colonies in the star formation. So do I replace that with the original 9 stripes or just leave it? Tell me what you think in the comments. And on that note, I'm gonna end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like and subscribe. And if you wanna see more historical redesigns, you can click the most recent one on the left, which is Mongolia. And the first one I did, which is Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.